Good day, everyone. Welcome to the first day of our symposium of hunters and gatherers. We would like to deliver our thanks for your kind coordination in registering and, of course, for being on time. My name is Christine. I'm hosting from Selasar Sunario Art Space. Before we open the symposium, please note down these several points. This is a safe space. Please kindly respect and nurture the space for everyone. Please turn off your audio input at all time because the panelists will be sharing for most of the parts of the symposium. We will have the Q&A session at 4:45. Please deliver your questions and inquiries during the session at our Q&A part. We will also be recorded. All of our conversations, questions that you deliver will be also broadcasted online through our YouTube channel, Selasar Sunario Art Space YouTube channel, that is. And please also check out any further details if you have any issues at the link /pollination 3. You can also chat me up if you have any other further questions about the event. I will be the admin for today's symposium. As everyone has entered the room, I will deliver the symposium to Zoe. Thank you so much. Welcome to today's symposium.
Thank you, Christine. Thank you, Selasar Sunario, for hosting. And thank you to my esteemed panelists for our final part of edition 3 of Pollination. I just wanted to introduce myself briefly. My name is Zoe Butt, and I am the artistic director of the factory in Ho Chi Minh City in Vietnam. For those of you who may not know the factory, we are one of the first purpose-built spaces for contemporary art in Vietnam. And as you can see from this brief little series of slides, we do a cross range of activities from film screenings to dance to visual art exhibitions, workshops, and quite a lot of discursive talks and seminars. And we don't only do activities within Vietnam, and to which Pollination is a very important project for us. It was initiated by the factory in 2018, and it provides emerging curators and artists in Southeast Asia the opportunity to co-produce and collaborate to mutually benefit from this region's private arts infrastructure. Platforms recognizing the value of sharing, or what we like to think of as pollinating, their critical ideas and activities. It is a long-term initiative that invites, for each edition, differing regional private organizations or individuals to advise, host, sponsor, and support. The significance of this particular program arose out of a realization that curator to artist relationships are little discussed in the region. And the role of the curator varies and is often misrepresented. The need to question how we produce and connect as contemporary thinkers of culture, as the majority of our infrastructure support comes from the private sector. It also comes as a desire to nurture our thinking, our writing, our talking, our making, our walking, and to think within the region, to offer a resource that is of, thus far, little shared access between us within Southeast Asia, and also the need to understand that we benefit artistically, creatively, via collaboration. So I'm showing you an image here of the first edition in 2018 with Grace Sambo, Bill Wen, Julia Sarasetiati, and Vicky Glo. And they realized a project between Vietnam and Indonesia. In 2019, we were working with Katijat Ramat, Le Thuan Nguyen, Izzat Arif, and Hoang Minh Luc. This was between Indonesia and Malaysia. And edition 3 is between LIR, and we have them here with us today, composed of Mira Asrinintias and Dito Yuwono, alongside Kittima Chareeprasit. And we have artists Maryanto and Ruangsak Anuwatwimon. So these 3 editions have been an incredible journey for the factories team, but also for our various communities that have been involved, and that could not have been realized without the generous support of the SAM Fund for Art and Ecology in Indonesia, Ilham Gallery and Foundation in Malaysia, and the Myem Contemporary Art Museum in Thailand. These three entities, including the factory, have enabled a vast amount of new knowledge between us, and I'm happy to say that we continue, alongside our curatorial advisors, to continue and hub and work together. The advisors include myself, Agung Janong, who is part of this edition also, and we have Rahel Joseph from Malaysia and Vipash Parichanant from Thailand, who is also involved in this edition. So part of Pollination is a year-long kind of residency, and before COVID, it was encouraging the meeting point physically, where curators would get together and learn the synergies between their thinking and their various communities, and from there, invite artists to partake in a particular project of mutual interest. And before, for the first two editions, it would entail a lot of travel between the two various countries. However, under a COVID moment, that has been particularly challenging for the edition 3. And despite those limitations, I have to say that this edition is the most ambitious to date, and it has been realized with the largest output to date. And I think that says a lot about our participants involved. And to that end, I have to say in advance, well, it's not in advance, we've done a lot, but I have to say thank you to LIR, to Kittima, to Maryanto, to Ruangsak, because I have learned buckets from all of you. And I'm going to severely miss you, because our Zooming and discussions over the past year have really been very, very nurturing for me in a COVID moment where I'm missing being able to think with people. But a few comments on why I think this is a very significant addition, in aside from it being one of the most ambitious. I think secondly, that the content inside this edition is very responsive to the global concerns of the impact of human behavior on our natural world. And very much you'll see in the coming hour or two how these artists have really prompted particular thinking on the part of the curators and how to respond in terms of its programming, its exhibitions, and its discursive related content. Thirdly, I have also been given much to ruminate on with the impact of artistic method on curatorial practice. And it's that latter point that I hope in the response and the Q&A, perhaps there's more time to unpack that. But for now, I feel that I should hand it over to Heru from Selasa. Thank you so much for hosting today.
Thank you, Zoe. Thank you. Hello, everybody. I'm Heru Hikayat, in-house curator of Selasa Sunario Art Space here in Bandung, Indonesia. Mr. Sunario, the founder, has been planning Selasa Sunario Art Space since early 1990s. It has been developed step by step. By the time Sunario thought it was ready to be launched, the political situation in Indonesia was heating up. Mr. Sunario has prepared an exhibition series of his own works for the opening of the space, but it was 1998. It was a chaotic situation for us Indonesians. Began with monetary crisis, mass protests against the regime of our second president, and the riot at the capital city and several other places. So it felt inappropriate to hold an art event during such uncertain time. Sunario then decided to cover all the works in black and opened the space by September 1998. The title was Titik Nadir. It can be translated the lowest point. So that was the beginning. Since the beginning, Selasa Sunario Art Space has always been seeing art in relation with broader context or other things, political and social situation at that time. We managed to maintain such character. And so when the Pollination came to us, it felt just appropriate for us to be a part of this project. the spirit of sharing, as it is implied by its name, and also exchange is also our spirit. The main concern of this symposium for the third pollination is local environmental degradation. Our location is in north of Bandung, a beautiful scenery with fast progressive development, which is both fascinating and threatening. So naturally, we do share this concern. On behalf of Selasa Sunario Art Space, I'm very grateful for this opportunity to be a part of this project. Thank you very much for all the initiators, curatorial advisors, sponsors, and committee of pollination. Thank you very much. So now I'm handing over to the curators of the third pollination, LIR and Kittima. Please, guys. Thank you.
Hi.
Hello. Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Hello.
We are LIR. My name is Mira Asuningtyas.
And my name is Tito Yuwono. And
My name is Kittima Chareeprasit.
okay. Then maybe we will continue directly to. So the third edition of Pollination. Okay. Oh, so yeah. Okay. Yep. There you go. Okay. So first thank you for Zoe and Mas Hikayat for the intro. And also, so the third edition of Pollination, curated by LIR and Kittima Chareeprasit, titled Of Hunters and Gatherers, is composed of an exhibition, symposium, and a dedicated website. Along the way, the project growing and not only presented in other formats, but also involved more people and organizations. The project is supposed to be reciprocal residency, which all of us can learn from each other context. But when we started working this project in March 2020, the first case of COVID in Indonesia just announced. And it makes us realize that it is impossible to do international mobility during the pandemic. And then we have to make a new strategy in this state of mobility, immobility. The local context approach, which instead of traveling to unknown place, we start by walking around and address the ecological issue that is happening closer to home.
So we come up with this term, local embodied knowledge, that is becoming the core of this project. So this core of this project is the idea that everything around this idea of local embodied knowledge, the term that used however insufficiently to translate the local term Indonesian kearifan lokal and Thai Pumpanya Konpim. As border close and lockdown are imposed, mobility is restricted for a better cause. So instead of widening the geographical scope of our research, we try to dig deeper and primarily focus on the local embodied knowledge and how to balance human desire with its object that measure impact sustainability. So we did not fly across the sea or widen our geographical scope of our research, and instead we follow the trail of the river and the mountain, the sinking island and the backyard cemetery, to the home garden and deforestation cases across Southeast Asia and other environmental cases closer to our home. So the first that we do is that we are following the mythical story and folk tales and assigning different essays to writer in the specific content.
And for the first part of this of Hunter and Gatherer, it is an exhibition of the hunter. We try to find the idea of how we can use the idea of local embodied knowledge to translate into the hunter in terms of the exhibition. Both of us, we kind of like dig back into our local mystery and story and folktale. And what we found is the story of the two hunters. One is Barata, a mighty hunter who tried to save the last elephant of Java Island by casting the elephant to a stone. And another story is Tajin Kundang Dang, the mighty hunter who lived along the along Mekong River in between border of Thailand and Laos. The idea of like extraction explored through the tales of these two hunters, and it leads us to the interested to do things called field research. Can I have another slide? The fact the Hunter is an exhibition resulting from extensive collaboration research undertaking for over 12 months. It is an exhibition that's due to understand the relationship between human and their natural surrounding, referring to learn gained through the bodily experience under the specific circumstance. So that's why us as a curator, together working with artists to do a site-specific research in two different places. Lito and Mira decide to, and Maryanto decide to walk through the active stereo volcano, Mount Merapi in Yogyakarta, while me and Ruangsak follow the trail of Tajin Kundang Dang in Mekong River to see what happened there and to learn more about the space. Then this research thing, after we went to this field research trip, we come back and the artists themselves creating the artwork, reflecting on the issue and the field trip that we went. For Ruangsak, he creating this installation called a curated God. It arises questions regarding the rapid change occurring around the biosphere surrounding Mekong River. The installation that you see here, excavated God, is actually a monument of the spirit that's used to guard Mekong River. The artist himself collecting all these specimens throughout the trip and creating the diorama of Mekong, which is the border between Thai and Laos for 2,000 kilometers. And also its installation compiled with another two works. One is the sculpture called 17 million years and 57 years, which is the years of Mekong was constructed. And he made a sculpture as a time capsule that preserved the Cadophora algae in the double layer borosilicate glass tube. And it's kind of like mini landscape inside of the tube to preserve it. While another one in his installation is a video called Beyond Blue, where the artist captured the satellite image of Mekong River and compare it with current environmental issue. Another room of the exhibition, which is our duo solo show at Myam. This one is the work from installation shot from Maryanto, another artist in this project. Maryanto, after taking time walking around Mount Merapi with the curator, he creating this series of painting that depicting the activity of sand miner and the landscape that's showing the road that engineered by mining truck that have become part of the landscape of Mount Merapi. Besides that, there's a two installation that look like a tent where the artists can get in and doing sitting inside and hear the story, which the artist collecting from the local is a ghost story and superstitious story. Outside of the tent is actually a drawing of the icon of animal image, but it's not just simply normal animal, it's a mythical animal that you can find it in Pribun book, which is an ancient Java fortune telling that. Another tent as well in the cross of the room that you will see out there is a kind of replica of the sand mine that is actually spread all around the mountain and is presenting the sound inside as well, that how Maryanto concerned of the impact of the sand mining on the deconstruct of the nature along the river of slope Mount Merapi. Okay, and beside the exhibition of these two exhibition space on the bridge connecting between two rooms of Gallery 5 and Gallery 6 at Myam, we actually present the artist in conversation video. It's a long video about hour and 22 minutes that artists exchange about their context and the story and issue that concern. So when the audience, when they come, especially Thai audience, they can learn more about what happened in Indonesia through this video as well. Beside the video room, this exhibition also present the artistic research process of these two artists through interview conducted with local of Mekong area, as well as the travel footage from the walk under Mount Merapi, artist sketch, as well as the research document that we do selecting some report, article, and general comparative text for audience to learn more about the content of this issue. So this is all about like the hunter as an exhibition.
And then we continue the process into the gatherer, which is over the last year, as we, the curators, work with the artists, we found ourselves recalling specific artists, other artists, artworks, performances, and social research that are just as equally concerned with their local environmental degradation due to the realities of government oversight, colonial extraction, and corporate greed. Thus, we realized that we need to listen not only from one side of a story, but also more than one side of a story. So the gatherer, consisting of symposium and website, gather brilliant minds living from Indonesia, Thailand, India, to share their works and opinion, expanding what it means to hunt for our needs, taking the time to gather different perspectives in order to be better guide a future forward. We are hoping it can help to understand the local embodied knowledge from different contexts. So it can be a more well-rounded and taken from different perspectives, different sites, and different localities.
Okay. So, acknowledging plurality of knowledge in different localities and also acknowledging the presence of polyphonic voices and movement with the same cause. So yeah, we gather all these people to be inside this forum to share the whole idea that is important and contextual in this time. So it's not only making a new form to transmit knowledge and experience. So the online platform is the broader ways of learning experience of knowledge, and the website help us to see the bigger picture, also gather people who share the same cause, but in different contexts, whether it's regional context or even wider. Okay. So everything is archived and presented at the website of huntersandthegatherers.com, which we just opened it to public yesterday. So it's compiled everything that we have done from the beginning, and all of the information, the text being translated in English, Indonesian, and Thai to be more accessible and broaden the knowledge. Most of and also most of the essay are downloadable in the PDF format.
So everything that we did for the year-long research is later compiled in this website. So on the left side over here, dedicated to the hunters, if you click there, archive all the information about the exhibition, including the image, artwork info, curatorial text, video conversation. And on the right side over here, if you click, that is dedicated for the gatherer, where this symposium will be recorded and published. And all the text of the contribution from the writer, artist, thinkers are gathered, such as this. So the text commissioning is ranging from newly written contribution to republish existing text. So from exhibition documentation to video interview. This site aims to prompt alternate study of local embodied knowledge and its relevance in rethinking ecological sustainability. So in this website, you can find creative interdisciplinary contribution by Prilatania, Forest Curriculum, Adam Bobet, Elizabeth D. Inandia, Wood Chalanan, JJ Rizal, Tita Salina, Napak Serirak, Sutirat Sapaperia, among others. This essays part is edited by Zoe Butt and Li Wenchon and designed by Rupong Raimut Turapong and Jonas Kristi Sanjaya.
After 14 months of seemingly endless online meeting via whatever platform that we use, we are finally here at the end of it. Yeah. And yeah, to give a glimpse what comes out from this 14 months or more maybe, long collaboration between the pollinator this year, here is the recap. So it can all be found online and compiled in our website, www.huntersandgatherers.com. Yeah. As you can see, we have the whole.
Yeah. So we will go in depth on discussing the curatorial and artistic research in the next session.
So thank you so much, everyone. We're ending up our introduction to the project of Hunter and Gatherer here with the image of the opening day of the exhibition, while Mira and Dito and Maryanto have their own small house opening as well in Yogyakarta. And we would like to share our gratitude to the sponsor and also the factory who found this project, as well as Sarasa Scenario and my Contemporary Art Museum. So after this, we will let the time for artists to speak more about their interest, their research, and their practice. Thank you.
Thank you.
So,
please, Maryanto. You are still muted.
Okay, thank you, everyone. I'm going to share my research program and my research, and also wait. Sorry. Yeah. Okay. So actually during my research, I mean, before the research, like in the past, I only recognize Mount Merapi's splendor as both beauty and danger, just for hiking, biking, and camping. Merapi is like a view from the window, like I always see from my house. Nothing is more profound than that. Until I got involved in this project, which gave me the opportunity to get closer to Mount Merapi. So me and curator walk around the curve and slope of Merapi, chatting with local residents, gave me many stories and knowledge about Merapi. Tell and story of the splendor of Merapi were passed down from generation to generation by their ancestors. Merapi is a kingdom where creature, human, spirit live in harmony and beauty that has embodied in Japanese society. I feel closer in atmosphere of aura of Merapi. Merapi is life. Merapi is life, providing the need of those who live around it. Water flow from the heart of the earth, and is graded by the intertwined pipe of various sizes leading to houses, luxury hotel below, the freshness of clean water that is rich in mineral. Of course, the mineral water companies took part. The farmer cut and collect fresh grass to feed his cows and goat, which produce the best fresh milk. Tourists back and forth, busy to get selfie picture. Tour guide are busy showing the beauty of the natural scenery. It's a very instant adventure about Merapi. In the same time, sand miner dig the ground, scrape the slope, incessantly, back and forth truck, load, line up, labor breaking. In the course of this research, I began to pay attention to sand mining in Merapi. a blessing and a problem. After the 2010 eruption, Merapi held a celebration that invited many people, provide material that made investor, mining companies come to take Merapi's blessing. Mining companies with modern technology dominate their colony massively. With giant machines, they dredge sand and rock as much as possible, while traditional miners marginalized, unable to compete. According to Mas Angga that we met during the research, Mas Angga is the head of Duku Kali Urang Timur, and also he is the environmental activist. He said that sand is a material that is always needed. There is no unsolved term for sand, especially in the current era of Indonesian development. But the sand can run out and will be available until there is another eruption. Several years passed, the sand began to run out, and the mining area had reached the permitted limit. Did they stop and leave? Of course not. River slope and cliff gaps are dredged, eroding the land around the slope, causing water source to be threatened with death. Even yard land, like backyard, and then also farmland. Mining has entered the village. Take its toll. One afternoon, I met Mr. Toto. On his new land around the cliff, he opened a new garden, a new farm in the area to keep the cliff intact. Because sand miners could run out of the cliff if they were not used. The landscape of Merapi has changed. The road that I used to ride for cycling has become steep and dusty cliff. Only the elephant stone remain calm. There, without being bothered by the hustle and bustle of tourists, the jeep take the tourists for an instant adventure but Merapi. In Japanese mythology, it said, Merapi always give everything as needed and always give. To take what is sufficient, nature should be preserved and cared for. Remember, Bah Marijan said that sopo seneng ngerusake ketentraman alam and lian akan dibendu oleh pangeran dan dielehke dening tumindake dhewe. That's mean those who disturb the nature and supernatural being will be punished by God and get karma for their own action. I'm going to share that about this work. This work is consists several parts. Picture on canvas using charcoal from wood that grows around Merapi, and the juice of a tea from the Turgo is a slope of Merapi. I choose this material because of the sense of gave me more closeness and spirit of Merapi. The canvas spread with a stone and ropes is a simple element that I took from the Japanese traditional art activities such as wayang or ludruk. The image is large because I want people to fit into the landscape. At the same time, the detail appeared. A picture of landscape that can be seen from afar as a view or closer to get to know more. It's like when I saw Merapi from my window, it's very beautiful, but when I get closer and then I can see more detail what is inside. It's like that idea that I try to give in the work. And also there are 210 with voice, with the sound, ghost story, and also people chatting, people from Merapi. So I wish that visitor can enter and sit while listening to the chat as if they are a part of the conversation. Okay, thank you. Yeah. Okay, so maybe Ruangsak can give the
No.
can share the work information.
No.
Thank you for Maryanto. Thank you for Kittima.
Sorry, I think that is maybe LIR first, and then you later, and then me.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Sorry.
Thank you.
We are very sorry that our internet is a little bit
Yes,
disrupted, but yeah, we are back.
we are back. We are back.
And yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so
Okay. Thank you.
thank you, Maryanto, for sharing your experience. In this session, we would like instead to share our research from the curatorial perspective. So, as you know, that we start this project with the story of the two mighty hunters, Barata and Taju Kung Dadang. And this is the image of Barata, the elephant hunters, on top of the last elephant that he saved. The image was from the fictional book, but this the stone that is similar to that of the fictional book can be found in Kaliadem village, surrounded by hundreds of lava-tooth jeeps and tourists. So we, the curator, followed our curiosity in such folkloric hunters to the forest and along the river, together with the invited artists. Different from the illegal sand mining industry, industrialization, hydroelectric, and the dam and legal governmental project.
So we decided to following the footsteps of the fictitious hunters. So we visited 3 villages under currently active Mount Merapi. So as you can see, we make 3 dots here, 3 green dots. That are the villages that we went to. So the first one, this one is Kaliurang, where we live and base. So it's around 7 to 9 kilometers from the peak of Mount Merapi. And then the second one is Kaliadem. It's one of the villages that was devastated by the big Mount Merapi eruption in 2010, and the village where the custodian of mountain live. So in 2010, there were a big eruption, and it went here, and it erased around 13 village, right? It erased around 13 village. So it's kind of sandy, and also the third one is Turco. It's here. It's a village under the sacred hill Turco, where the nature is still pristine and untouched by the exploitative sand mining industry. As you can see here, this image, you can see Turco Hill in the left. So this is Turco Hill. And also Pelawangan Hill, where the Kaliurang is located. Yeah. The 2 villages of Kaliurang and Turco are separated with a river that is central and later translated into Maryanto's video work presented at the screening program with the Grace Center Chicago, which is still available right now for viewing until the end of this symposium. So this is the river, and then this is the Turco and Pelawangan here. Yeah. Yeah. So for us, it is important to build the research together with the artists. It's to build together understanding of the topic. In general, this is our curatorial method of production in most of our project. For us, it means companionship as well as mutually supporting each other to create a complete and comprehensive cycle of project. Not only hosting the research for the artist. We see it as us and the artist serving the same cause. In the very beginning of the project, we did multiple walks under Mount Merapi before we decided to focus on one urgent issue, sand mining industry. So as you can see, this is the route that we took when we walked the around Mount Merapi.
So the photograph in this slide show the two main concern of extraction that is happening in Mount Merapi for us at the moment, which later become the concern of Maryanto during his walk. The hills over here is carved as a result of the massive sand mining because the sand on the river were running out and the miners start to aim for the hill as the resource of the sand, further damaging environmental around. So as a result, the water reservoir are dying. The farmers find difficulties to get sufficient water for their field. And if you can see the picture on the right side, show that one of the sacred water resource still left, but then not so many, like not enough water for everyone. And people are actually very dependent on it. Actually, if we trace back to the years of 1980s, we can see that the smaller scale of the sand mining industry can be traced back all the way back. But later, the government allows heavy machinery to be used on the river, initially to reduce the volume of volcanic material after each eruption. And at the same time, mythically, it is believed that where the flows of the eruption goes is where the power also goes. But if you can also believe it as a myth, but we can also see it through the monetary benefit from the sand mining itself. If the volcanic material is being taken only sufficiently and cautiously, balance can be restored. But the sand mining industry turns out to be very profitable and it triggers illegal miners to start to operate. So in the case of Maryanto's research, we realize how sensitive and dangerous it could be. And there is the heat of the silent conflict that's hanging in the air, especially between the lava tour jeep driver versus the truck drivers. It is even more sensitive when our local team over here is meeting with the Queen of Yogyakarta regarding this conflict.
Yeah, because of that meeting, that one of our team did with the Queen, the situation around this area and around this topic heating up. The night before it happened, the night before our walk, we had an urgent meeting on strategic invisibility and how to be incognito ourselves. By definition, strategic invisibility is an act of resistance by consciously hiding in plain sight and blending in with the mainstream for the purpose of safety. So in between the sensitive issue and the silent conflict between the lava tour jeeps and the sand miner, it's important to learn about strategic invisibility during the research. At the same time, the sand mining site is used by the lava tour jeep as their route. So being a tourist and act like one is the safest way to take documentation of the mining site. So as you can see, we took a lot of photo with this tourist gesture with a selfie style so that it won't be suspicious by the sand miner. Yeah. So in choosing the research team, we need to find the local people or collaborators that Maryanto is comfortable with and resourceful at the same time. One of our key figures for the research is this young village leader, or we usually call it Pak Dukuh, who is also an avid environmentalist, dubbed as the Decision of the Year by WALHI, the Indonesian Environmental Group. For the project, we, LIR, have local affinity to the space and act as the bridge between the artist and everyone connected to the research.
So at the end of the research, apparently, Maryanto and us, we have different archival impulse. As we collect the story, Maryanto collects imagery of the research. And while we do the research report, give affirmation of the research, as a reminder of the information collected is correctly recorded. So this research image that Maryanto created, including video and sketches, are presented at the research room of the Hunter exhibition, while his artistic results are almost documentary, as you can see in this image. So this is one of our work that is later translated into the painting over here. And in one of the selfie that we took, he translated into this image, for example. And in the exhibition, there are many of those stories. Well, at the same time, we produce different but complementary set of research of all the issue through the painting, while we are the curator tries to make sense through the writings. Probably Ruangsak and Kittima has different approach. They will share after this. Please, thank you.
Ruangsak, please go first for your interest on the.
Thank you for everyone for very deep research and speaking. And also, we thank you for Pollination project, Kittima, LIR Dito, Christine, Heru, and Zoe Butt for a very ambitious project. So not take much time. Actually, this project is really exciting me since beginning this I heard about. Because of I've been to Mekong River since 2016 to collect some soil, but on the time this doesn't saw this something this different. And also this is in the most impressive me to Mekong River is the red color of the water. So it's when Kittima asking me for this project, is I already have two projects to want to approach, but one is impossible. Is about what I say the radioactive activity in Japan, so it's impossible to catch out. So I select this Mekong River because I heard about the blue Mekong. And this picture that you saw, I think this already shared sometime, is about the water Mekong reservation. It's have a lot of dam. This is will produce. Some is already complete. Some is not. In Laos, is supposed to be have more than this. I heard this about 19 dam will produce in a few years. In Vietnam too, also in Cambodia. Of course, this is Thailand too. So by this point, it's kind of how to say that, affecting me to something else. About the to find something this is relative. So this one is coming up. This is a few months ago. After this is the pollution is already done in my ear. Of course, this I'm not so sure. This is how old it is, or this is just Levica or something like that. But it shows this is the bowl of the dragon. Of course, this is from China. Is similar kind of in Thailand. It's about the Naga. What we believe this is control and is bringing nourishment to this river or something like that. I think this information that you already know about this, but for more of this information, this is new information because Mekong River is not stop changing things. What is happened is this area is have really typical local tree, Kanaka. So I don't know this is how to translate in English, but in Thailand is we call lamsang. So it's really typical plant in Mekong River, and this is already died. I mean, this tree, this kind of the tree is huge, but it's supposed to be, the root is has to be under the water. But then this is unnatural of this is the tidal of the Mekong River is affect to those trees to be affected, them to be die like this. So it's gonna be new landmark of something like a dead tree or something like that. Yeah. And also this, what is we, me and Kittima just been to another place, Homonia Liparia. So this one is also dying from this kind of this tidal unnatural. All of these animals, these are risking from this unnatural tidal. It can be everything. This is affected. So I never found something that is huge, destructive like this before. This one, we try to catch it during this trip of research, but we not found it. It's called Mekong earthworm. So it's supposed to be a second largest of the earthworm of the world. And then even now I ask this IUCN people, they still not have information of this type of earthworm. Yeah. And those of the fish that we heard, this is supposed to be, some maybe go to extinct soon because it's, yeah, I used to, that word is maybe too much, unnatural. So it's gonna be kind of the question of this project, how we stop it, how we preserve it, by art, by activity, by activists, how this is huge than me, than even this the group of all people here. But luckily, yesterday we found something else. I mean, actually, it's not just the day before. This, I don't like these people. Okay, but there's a group of the people. This is they convinced, and there's a try to explanation about this is how to focus on Mekong River problem, but they are kind of this net idol in Thailand. So it's become to be in the view of the radar of some people. I would like to use that word. Perhaps under the radar of some people, above the radar of some people. But in case of, it can bring some issue for about this. So I already asked some people who in the law of international law of disaster, the answer is still confirmed is we cannot fit with that because it's those of the company who make this water reservoir or the dam is initiation by nominee from the country like China, Laos, Thailand. So if we kick them by the law, it's just a little thing that they consider. But yesterday there's a big news about Shell. I think you already heard about that. The International Justice Court in The Hague in Holland is justice to Shell company to strict carbon emission. I think it's 45% in a few years. 2030, something like that. So it's supposed to be a good news for a future. But again, when we talk about this is the Mekong River, what we can push the small people, local people to push that project to sue that huge country like China, I don't see that possible. Yeah. So I will end like this. But again, I will tell you, thank you for everything that this project bring me in this, and it's still unfixed in myself. So if after COVID phenomenal release, perhaps if I have a chance, I would like to go to Cambodia to see Tonle Sap. This is the last place of Mekong River will affected. This is the largest lake in South Asia. Thank you.
Thank you, Ruangsak. Can you stop sharing the screen?
Yep.
And I will share. Okay, so then I will share my response to what you just mentioned and say along with our trip to Mekong together. And I actually make this like photo essay called The River Comber, but I will not repeat that since everyone can like take a look on the website of Hunter and Gatherer. It's already live now yesterday. I will just have to share some point that I found that is interesting during the trip that I went with the artist during along with the Mekong. With Dito and Mira, they mentioned that or with Maryanto as well, he mentioned that Mount Merapi is somewhat the view outside his window. But for us, like I guess for both me and Ruangsak, we quite been far away from Mekong River. But what interests us, sorry, I cannot, okay. But what interests us is also this image by news. And as Ruangsak mentioned, that now the issue of Mekong River become there's more awareness among Thai, because a lot of like KOL activists who are influenced among young or start interest, but also the technology is become cheaper as well. A lot of villager or local as able to take the image of what currently happened to Mekong and share immediately. Like, for example, this is Blue Mekong that Ruangsak mentioned. It's actually took on 30 November 2019, actually 3 months after Sayaburi Dam are activated. So we found a lot of this image that normally we will never know what happened there, but it's because of local are accessible to more technology, and then they can spread this image around social media, as Facebook, which is really popular in Thailand. So it's kind of the beginning point of this project that me and Ruangsak agreed to go there and see what actually happened. And like Mira and Dito, the story will actually start from beside the environmental issue. The area that we select to start is called Gang Kut Ko. It was started by story of this mighty hunter as well. The hunter who tried to block the river, and the merchant cannot pass, and it's kind of like disrupt villager life. But then it's for us, this story sounds really similar to what happened now with Mekong, with a lot of them building along 11 then on top, and recently 200 kilometers away from border of Thailand, Sayaburi 1 is the new hydrogenic power dam that recently activated in 2019. Gang Kut Ko here is the beginning of our journey with the change of ecology, but it's also have the story of the hunter, which is really interesting. The story of the hunt, it become become tourist attraction. Tourist attraction after 1997, when the Rose Park by and the Thai authorities start to make this as a landmark to Thais to have the vacation spot, another vacation spot next to Mekong River. But not just only creating that area, they have to build something that's significant enough for people to come and take a photo with as a result. That create this symbolic of sculpture as a public sculpture of the hill, the hunter around here. But the hunter, sculpture, this public sculpture does not only act as a tourist attraction spot for travel, for tourists to take a photo only, but it's also a symbolic function as well. As you can see, the hunter is actually put this bowl across the river, which is Laos. Mekong is not only it's not just only normal river, but it's also act as a natural border between Thailand and Laos as well. But I guess it's like other places in Southeast Asia that when you have to make travel tourist spot, it's like Kali Dam village in Yogyakarta, where you have that stone with the mythical story that people believe that that stone is actually an elephant, right? Here in Thailand as well, that we kind of like trained to name the historical origin by the story of mythical. And with this place, the hunter is the name of this place. What the function of this hunter is that only to protecting territory of Thailand, but it seems like this hunter does not protecting the environmental issue surrounding it. This two image is actually image of Gang Kut taking into different in different years. On the left hand side was taken on around 2010, and on the right hand side is taken on July 2019, which actually a few months after Sayaburi Dam were operated. You can see that the river here are like dry down, and it's actually affect a lot of people life around. So as mentioned to you before, Sayaburi Dam was like the newest hydrogen dam that's just sit across really close to Thailand. It's just 200 kilometers away, and alongside with other dams, 11 dams in China, and also another 11 dams that's planned to happen in next few years. So the image on the right hand side here is a 300 kilometer away from the dam, was taken by in October 2019, the same month that the dam has operated. So in this trip, we saw a lot of faith. We went there actually on the trip together on June 2020. What we saw is like really quiet and silent. And I guess that hunter does not protecting this life along. This is just only few example of what we collect, and right later on, Ruangsak actually make it as in installation that Coveted got. It's a 10-day of experience of finding sign of what current to see a clue of what actually happened there as an outsider. And then beside this 200 kilometer away dam, we also found out that the issue that's occurring exactly on the spot is actually they're also doing a sand for the river as well, and they're getting the sand from the river for construction work. As a result, they're also impacting an ecology and environmental around. Like what we see alien species that normally not this type of plant is not actually something local for that area. And a lot of things change. Like there are agriculture along Mekong River is also gone. A lot of stuff gone, not just only environmental. And this is another example of this is earthworm that we found comparing to what Ruangsak has shown earlier is actually way smaller. And we now the earthworm, the big one, becoming a mythical of the Mekong instead. So we keep creating new mythical from extinction, I guess. Not just only animals, but also a lot of people affecting from affect not just only animal or creature, but human also that have got effect from the chain of ecology of Mekong. Since they cannot do only fishermen, but then they cannot only do a fishing as a job. They become more reliant on tourists as the way for getting more income. Every villager that we met that actually do like two or three jobs. One is they come like fishing for their life, but their main job becoming riding the boats for tourists to enjoy the viewing of Mekong, for example. But then during the time that we went there is also a COVID time. There's no tourists, and it's really sad environment that is been really quiet around. Besides these environmental that change, people as also feel like hopeless as well. Lastly, our journey is begin from Gang Kut Ku in LIR, but it's aimed at Sadu Khong, which is referred to Mekong Valley. They believe that it's a deepest area of Mekong River, around 200 kilometers deep. And what I saw there, actually, they're creating a temple beside that area, and they have these door decorated by flag of ASEAN flag, and I guess you see Indonesian flag over there as well. And also the side under is called the 1st of January 2016, opening the door to ASEAN with the hope that the Mekong could serve as a connecting portal between the member nations. However, as mentioned before, Mekong acting like a natural border, and it's actually not that easy for people to crossing around as well. This is what we believe, but again, I still see one of the guy from Laos side walking around across Mekong River and get into the side of Thai border and just live simply happy like that. So can we actually divide the nation, and can we actually say that this environmental is part size of the river is us, another side is your? Is it something to be shared and connected among people who living along Mekong? This is something that I wonder as well. And I think this is something that toward we're going to looking more forward in Ruangsak work in the future if he still continue research on Mekong issue. Thank you.
Thank you. That was wonderful. And I think this is the first Zoom where we are ahead of time.
Oh.
I think there's much to share after having walked along this whole year with you guys. I am very touched by how the curators are particularly attached now to environmental and particular geographical contextual histories as a consequence of having worked with Maryanto and Ruangsak. And I'm quite struck by the level of investigation on a historical, environmental, and political level to which you both, the curators at least, have demonstrated a kind of commitment And I am curious to see how much of your ongoing work after this continues to champion the recognition of what you just said, Kittima, the questioning of the relevance of borders and how can our making, our talking and our walking challenge those assumptions in different ways. I do understand that LIR already have quite a method of working with artists in their journey of production, but I am quite compelled with this project in the relationship between our mythical heroes and how do we transmit the relevance of those heroes to contemporary figures. And in this case, it was very much looking at Barata in Merapi in Yogyakarta, whose presence became a stone that sits still to this day under Merapi. And then we have the Thai mythology, which is Ta Jungkung Dandeng. I don't know if I'm saying that quite right. But he is a figure, as you've just shown, Kittima, with a spiritual tourism site dedicated to this particular memory. In comparing these two tales and seeing how they became a launch of thinking and questioning of morality, there's a certain morality behind these two stories that talk about our ability to change the course of events. So in the Thai story, this mythical god, he attempts to block a river and another divine being stops him and he dies. But as a consequence, there's an association of this Thai myth with the corporate world of China and their damming of the Mekong. And in the case of Barata, we're looking at sand mining and how not only public or state-sponsored industries, but also how the private small families equally are struggling to survive. So in a consequence of these kinds of stories mirroring each other in the state of destitution, this idea that the environment is falling away as a consequence of greed, but also the need to survive. And so my question also sort of stimmies around how can us as cultural makers give space to pushing the need to address the negligence and the disenfranchisement. You know, like you just saw Ruangsak very pertinently share current data on Shell, on its thinking of how it needs to be taken to task on its pollutant behaviors. You know, to have an artist champion this and to then have a work of art inside a museum space that discusses the negligence and the fact that we have sea life drastically reduced. I'm a champion very much of projects that try to raise the awareness. And that is another reason why I find this Pollination quite compelling, because as a consequence of being one of the editors alongside Lee Wen Choi for all of the texts that were invited by the curators, I really got quite an extensive cross-section of the nexus between artistic thinking, curatorial thinking, historical thinking, anthropological thinking, and literature. And there's a mass amount of common cause there. And I think that one positive aspect of this particular edition is to be able to leave an archive that is accessible in 3 languages. And so I congratulate all of you on the pulling off of such a sizable amount of work. I think that it is to be commended, because this question of the archive returns me to a very important question that Ruangsak also raised, which is how to preserve the nature around us. Is it through art? Is it through activism? And in what way do we consider, or are we uncomfortable with that notion of being considered an activist? And I mean, maybe if I'm allowed to ask Ruangsak a question. I'm curious, have you ever been called an activist, and are you comfortable with that label? You might want to put on your microphone.
Actually, I asked myself many times, I be aware about this, how to be being as the activist, because many times these activists are quite violent, in my opinions. Even this like late 70, 80 or something like that. Of course, there is some activists, they work very done till they got shot by the guns. Even in France, they against the nuclear power plant. I think you heard there's some story about that. Yeah. But the new activists in after 2000, they are doing something more active in the social lives. So it's not become to be individual hero all the time, but bring this is all people to come, and of course include with art, science, historians, curator, even the museum. This is how to be involved with this. So it's moving in this huge team part about that. Then it's going to be a social movement, I think, but it doesn't make any sense in Asia yet, because we are still, I think, I'm not sure this is use that word correct, fractal. Each country it is. So we just kind of, that self is, we are kind of the huge giant of this population greeding for the nature, eat everything that, but for our opinion, we just leave that out. So if you're considering this to make a team, yeah, is good idea, but also this have to be really careful who they are, because our history is still dark and dirt.
Yes, no, I totally agree. And another key word I recall from LIR was thinking about the role of companionship in undergoing research with an artist in the development of ideas and projects. I think that's a very useful word for thinking about the movement of knowledge in companionship. But I wanted to revisit also this idea of strategic invisibility that was referenced also in relation to Maryanto and the research that you were undertaking, and the fact that you had to resort to the idea of you as a tourist in order to engage a site and to document. And I'm wondering, the history of the touristic gaze is long and deep and complicated and comes wrapped up in all kinds of differing ideas about voyeurism and the power of gaze. But I think in this particular context of the political, where you are trying to raise awareness of an activity that is not raised in the mainstream memory, I wonder, Maryanto, to what extent this particular project, does it resonate with previous projects that you have done, where you've had to go into other kinds of sites similarly invisible, or was this your first encounter of this kind of nature?
Yeah, I think different place has a different strategy. For example, like the project that what I did in Wonocolo, the time Wonocolo is a site for the like a traditional oil company. So that time, no, not company, traditional oil rig, very chaotic. So that time, when we have a new president, actually like new president try to reorganize the traditional oil miner. And then there is a chaotic because big demonstration there. So the new strategy that I got is I have to have a connection to go inside because it's guarded by the military. So it's happened in 2014. 2014, 2015. So I have a friend that has a connection like what is called like a group of people, also the activists who live there. And then I have a connection, and then we went there and then go inside. And then, but before we go inside, we have to meet the owner, one of the owner of the oil rig, like the village from the village. So the strategy is very easier because they give me some rule, like for example, like you have to come there with some reason that not sensitive with them. For example, like you are not activist, we are not environmentalists, like that. So you just a friend of our friend, like that. You just working around and then just see what happened. And then, but also it's very easier because when I say that I'm an artist, like that, it's easier for them, like, you are a painter. So for them, it's not threatened, yeah. Okay. But some area, for example, like this area in Kaliurang, they are more welcome with the tourists because tourists, like, I don't know, have no brain. I think. Okay, just tourists. Okay, take a selfie and then happy and then ha ha ha. It's very safe. But if I came there with the sum of group, for example, maybe with the black shirt, and then there is a right here, for example, like anti-capitalism, for example, it's going to be more sensitive, I guess, like that. I think, yeah, that's the strategy is easier. But I did fail when I went to Nigeria. I cannot cover everything because my appearance is very different. When I asked them, like, okay, I want to go to the oil place in Nigeria, and then I met some guy that they are working in some newspaper and then produce a book about the Nigerian Delta, and then he gave me the advice. You can go there, but you have to do like go to the military base camp first to make you safe. You have to have permission from your embassy, and then you have to get guarding from the Amnesty International, like that. So for that thing, it's very impossible for me, like, because it's super difficult. Like, it's not like as easier as I can in Indonesia, because I can blend very easier. But in other country, it's look like very different already. I think that's another case. Maybe Mira can tell something about our experience, because you are a local people from the Merapi.
Yeah, does Kittima or LIR have anything to comment on this question of activism and strategic invisibility?
Well, for us, it was very important, like Maryanto said, on being a fool. That's the title of one of our research report. It's how to be a fool, because let me read a phrase from Jan Verwoerd on Superflex, on eFlux. He wrote something like this: "The idiot is at liberty to articulate yet unsolicited desire, because he or she cannot know the laws that ties everyone to the common fate prescribed by power, corruption, and lies. How to be idiotic? Being foreign helps. Protected by the rights of hospitality, your ignorance might be pardoned. When, as a foreigner, you speak or act in ways so unaccustomed as to be incorruptible. So far out, they can hardly be pulled back under. For who would bother to correct such a fool? Foreign idiots cannot heal the pain of desire bared from realization, but they might still give desire a history by listening to its articulation. In the disguise of idiocy, the traveling artist, writer, or filmmaker can become a witness to the particular desire that corruption holds on." So this belief that being a fool is something that we learn and we try to do, And when we are walking in the steps in the village that is famous with the custodian of the Mount Merapi, who always say that I'm just a foolish man. That's something that he keeps on saying, because he's not an educated man, but he's more spiritual, closer to the volcano, closer to the stone, rather than to the civilization, something like that. So for us, it is this phrase that is written from this thinker, Jan Verwoerd, is somehow very much connected to the ideas of the custodian of Mount Merapi, who, you know, just who just passed away in 2010. Yeah, something like that. Kitty, do you have something to add?
You're on mute.
I guess, like, because we are also went there as an outsider as well, and then doing something by knowing nothing is like an important way to approach to local, especially when you speak different dialect with them as well. You're just like someone else, so you're just like some random people from Bangkok and Chiang Mai, and you actually really not caring about this, and they see us as only a tourist. And even though we have the sympathy of the situation that currently occur around, the way, as much as knowing the story of how they're struggling with the situation, that there's no tourists during the COVID-19, it's turned out that we spend more. How to say, like, actually because we feel guilty that these people have no customer, so we actually spend our like budget on research to pay this local and ask them to take us around on the boat as well. And I feel that it's kind of like responsibility that we have to do. That's something that I want to share.
Ruangsak wants to add.
Yeah, I agree with Kittima. I still striking with this is when I heard this Lung Prasad, the one guy this who was striking his boat was damaged by this tidal of this Mekong River. He did not have the money to fix his boat, so we cannot this on the time. We just pay for his boat trip, and he also used another friend boat, not his own boat. That is, we really suffering for that. And of course, it's after how many months right now, years, we don't know this is how is his life. Yeah. Again, can I have about 2 minutes? Because you asked me about something this I did before, so I wanted to share something this, and of course this because it's also affect to perhaps this project too. This is the monster phenomenal project. It's about the mutation plant in Fukushima. So I've been there as a foolish tourist. Thai people came to Japan. On that time, it's not, of course, they have no tourists. On 2015, 16, and 17, 3 years it's been there. Of course, I've been to with my full suit to protection by this is a very high radioactive contaminated. But again, what is effect to the local people? Even friend of mine who invite me to come to that area, they angry me. This is a secret of themselves. What I found is evil. So that many projects I have to considering this. We try to tear apart people to bring the truth out, but the truth is something they keep in their mind because they fear it's going to be something worse more than this happen. That we have to considering a lot with what the fear this of the local people is. Yeah, for Mekong River, be sure it's another story. This when we've been there with Kittima, we just heard that some people die, local people die before we came. So it's still something in, how to say that, violence and uncontrolled there. Yeah.
Yes, I think the responsibility of artistic research, and particularly when you're dealing not only with material objects, but you're actually dealing with people and their own integrity and their livelihoods. And you have to ask yourself, what impact am I having with my questions and the photos that I want to take, or the evidence I want to pick up and take home? You know, there's a need to think about, am I going to have a negative impact? And to what extent do I want to take responsibility for that? And I always question, because I've been involved with quite a number of projects now that deal with various historical traumas that are not recognized by the state that they belong, countries or the nations that they belong. And so you're dealing with narratives that are highly sensitive, and there's a lot of material collected, and you've got very rare material that the predominant people in that community have no idea or access. So then it leaves me questioning, what is the power of the art object itself? You know, when you think about the canvas paintings of charcoal that Maryanto has done, and you know that this is, I think you've used parts of this dirt comes from Merapi itself. So there's a symbolic weight in the materials that you've gone and imbued inside the work itself, which has the memory of Merapi materialistically. And then Ruangsak, with your installation, there's this idea that the Mekong is floating. Literally, it's so incredibly fragile. It looks like it's just about to fall apart at any moment. And yet it's one of the most largest waterways of the world, and one of the most significant ones, you know. And so to what extent can we think about, how do we define landscape? When we think of that word today, it has historical definitions, but to me, landscape today comes with so much more psycho-geographical, economic, emotional relationships, and particularly in relation to this project, it has a locally embodied form of knowledge in its landscape, in that you have, as LIR just mentioned, there is a man who is the custodian of Mount Merapi, who recently passed away, whose presence in that particular site is equal and inherent to the understanding of the landscape of Merapi. So one of the aspects that I wished I could see physically in person with the actual exhibition, I sadly can't get that, but the relationship between the objects and the contextual material to which all of you have spoken about. And I think that's one of the really important aspects of this show, is that next to these beautifully compelling aesthetic moments, which is the artwork, you have these quite harsh facts and realities coupled within it. And I think in the exhibition space, that is where the artist and the curator has the most amount of power to influence and persuade. But then it comes down to how we take these ideas beyond just that very limited audience, because we have to understand that what we do is understood by an incredible few when we think about the person that owns the boat that didn't get fixed on the Mekong River, or the sand miners who live under these tents in very harsh conditions. I mean, the contexts that we operate in are completely different to those that we actually care about. So how do we bring the two worlds closer together, you know? I think that's a question for all curators. I think it's a question for, it should be, I think, a question for all artists. And I do really, I really have learned so much from watching you guys, all of you work with the various communities that you care for, and I've heard you speak very personally, and I know how passionate you are. So I'm going to be watching all of you to think about how this particular project moves into different directions in your future work. And I really do urge anyone in the room that if you haven't had a chance to check out the website, do spend some time reading the texts, because they do embellish the project's ideas in ways that are different and needed. But now I think I'll hand over to Heru to see if there's any questions out there for us.
Okay, thank you, Zoe. Thank you, everyone. I haven't seen anything in the question and answer chat. So everybody, all the attendees, you can submit your question to the question and answer chat box. So then you can continue this discussion. I think we have roughly 25 minutes left. That's quite a lot of time, I suppose. But before something pop up in the Q&A chat box, I found myself, I don't know, I think this strategy as foolish tourist, maybe that will be a new curatorial research method. That is something interesting. Well, and also how Zoe asked Ruangsak about being activist. That's also something that I think very intriguing, because that question I think is also refer to the impact. I see the works both from Maryanto and Ruangsak from the screen. I cannot actually be there, but I can imagine that all the works which come from very extensive research, it will be you know, something to see, something that impressive within the art space. But when we talk about the impact, I think it's something different. So sometimes I'm asking myself, how can we maintain the connection, the relation, that something we see in the art space is still connected to the things out there, all the problematic situation out there. So because there is not question yet at the moment, maybe I can allow myself to ask this question to both Ruangsak and Maryanto. In maintaining this connection, the things within the art space with all the problematic issues out there, I believe you as artists, you are dealing with this issue all the time. But my question is more to this project, your experience specifically from this third pollination. Do you think will make any difference in your approach? Like also Zoe asking question, but how is going to do moving in the future? So before the third pollination, and what do you think after the pollination? How do you see this connection, things within the art space and all the things out there? That is my question to you, Ruangsak and Maryanto. Okay, Ruangsak, you go first.
Yes, actually, I already did. In fact, I didn't thought it should be hard, the question. I mean, for myself. I tried to find the name of the Mekong earthworm. Of course, I found this Latin name. The research, a lot of paper research about this. But statements, situation of Mekong River earthworm, still unclear. It's, as I told you, it's still mystical. Even this, I have a friend in IUCN, asked them, still have no answer. And that's impressive, surprised me. Because IUCN is, as you know, this is an international union for conservation of nature. They are booked a list to be a red, yellow, or vulnerable, or least concerned. I think you know that, right? But this kind of earthworm, I can say that's again a second largest earthworm of the world, is in mysterious situation. How is possible? That is also the answer, is connecting with the people around, whether they are artists or no artists. This situation right now, this is open every source to come to your question. It's not only art itself. We are question of the world. We are, I don't know, we are the trouble, perhaps, of the social, of this is what they thought the social is stable. We are not. We are not this, in these games. So we create a new games for that people. You know. I think this, for my answer, is like that. Yeah.
Thank you, Ruangsak. Maryanto, you want to add something?
Yeah, for me it's different. I put myself actually as a painter, as a drawing. It's very easy. I love landscape like that. I remember that how the landscape is become very popular. If you know the Moi India, how the Dutch colony paint the Indonesian landscape very beautiful and everything. They tell everything about the Indonesia. But something that I can do as a painting also because I love landscape, so I try to put another landscape that tells something more deeper than that. It's very easy. I think many Indonesian people easy to understand landscape than abstract painting like that. Maybe it's not give a big impact, but at least I can share my empathy about this story that I can tell from my work, from my painting, like that. So it's not like something that like something that you want to give this work become very viral and then get the impact for directly, but at least the awareness of the society and people can be understood. It's very traditional way also, like usually like during the wayang beber or traditional art, they can put some advice inside to about the wisdom and everything. So I think I follow this kind of rule like in my work. Yeah, that's my answer.
If I can just add something, one other aspect of the project that I actually really am hoping that can continue in other forms is that you as artists were working in very remote communities and then staging the project's realization again in cities not assumed the centers, such as Bandung and Chiang Mai. And I hope that we will be able to tour the exhibition to another venue that belongs to the Eric Booth Empire, which is Mei Li, which is in Isan country in northern Thailand. You know, I really grateful for the chance to be able to challenge how we perceive what is the difference between a painter and an artist and an activist in these kinds of communities. In Vietnam, we similarly have much more familiarity with the idea of the painter as opposed to the artist. And it really echoes what you just said, Maryanto, where you said, well, people are more happy in understanding what a painting, landscape is as opposed to an abstract painting. And I think that the opportunity to take our conversations, you know, we're always finding that we need to stir the center, the presumed centers, but the chance to engage another differing audience that sits very dynamic in its own local forms of embodied knowledge, so to speak, but to start to hub and network in those different kinds of places, I think is really relevant to curator and artist relationships. And I just wondered, for Kittima and LIR, considering Kittima, you're in Chiang Mai, you work as a part-time curator for the My EM Contemporary Art Museum, and LIR, you have your own initiatives which are based in Jogja. I mean, both of you are somewhat, you know, very much charged and dedicated to these particular locales. How do you find Pollination has challenged your idea of audience, considering that you're working with me, we're online? Has anything shifted in what you think is necessary to your work? Anyone want to speak?
Yeah, maybe we already did several times regarding to this issue, but every time we learn something more, and every time we also engage more people to take this issue even further, especially with this possibility through the pollination project, which we also together with Kittima, we also expand the audience and also expand the form of the presentation, so that I think the awareness around the ecological issue it's become wider and wider, even though like as Maryanto said, it's never enough and it's never fast enough to to change the whole situation, uh, this crisis. But again, it is important to always bring up this issue to so many levels. Yeah.
Because for us, it's not just about producing new artistic work, but it's really about the fighting for the same cause. And we find Maryanto is having same fight personally even. So that's what makes the process is really easy, and the audience the audience was very broad, because
I think also I'm interested with your statement about the tourists, which already has a long history, but in our specific situation, we work with the tour organizer to understand how bad is the impact of the sand mining, so that we always try to find which less evil kind of thing between the tourist or the sand mining industry, and then it's in constant research for us also.
It's a constant pull back and forth also with Maryanto, because when we first walk, we try to evaluate whether the impact of tourism or the extraction of the sand miners or the extraction of the water is worse for the environment, and which one to address first. So we choose our fight, and we choose the sand mining industry, not the sand miner in person, but the sand mining industry. So it's please, Kitty, now.
Before I answer I would like to ask you as well, there, because you also work on 900 PDPL, which is like kind of like a biennale at around Mount Merapi, and working with the site specific as well. Is that working on this pollination project is also affect the way you thinking about your 900 PDPL project, or how it's helped you on that project as well?
Of course, we do the research together.
I think it's also resonate with the question whether are we going to bring this issue forward in the future or just stop here. But in that sense, I think it is very important to just go further however you can. And I think this pollination also give us the chance to move forward and go further.
Yeah, also because along the way, the research is really dense, and that can be something that we start on for the next 900 MDPL, because the next 900 MDPL is really focusing on how the mythology around the mountain affects the ecological issue in that area. So that was very beneficial. Thank you, Zoe. Kitty, you.
Answer, Kitty.
answer. That's okay. That's my. Because I think like this is the first time for me as well to focusing on like environmental issue. I think before we were starting the project, we was discussed like whether what is the issue that we both interested, right? Is that anything that we are interested in, it come up to be an environmental issue. For me, my practice has never been really about an issue of environmental, especially Mekong was not my major interest at all. It's the first time that I did these site-specific things with the artist, and I learned a lot by being an accompanying with the artist through this trip. And of course, Ruangsak is really inspiring throughout that 10-day of intermediate in trip in the car together with the artist. Normally like my interest is always about like politics, and even when we look at these environment issue, I cannot help in myself looking at the issue of like geopolitical stuff, and I keep mentioning about the issue of like nation state border and territory, even it is about environmental. I think it's also something that related and revolving around that. If you see that this issue actually the problem will start because of the infrastructure or something that bigger, and this is just only the result at the end point. But I think it's interesting, but to continue on this project, I'm not really sure, honestly speaking. My current interest is also focusing on like more activists, but more toward Thai politics, and that I think is more urgent as well right now to raise up this issue. So yes, in the future, I if I have chance, I will definitely continue on this environmental side. But meanwhile, like my focus on right now, but it's actually shaped me a lot as well, this pollination project throughout this 18 months of working. Is that 18, 12 years or even more? It's like every time I have a meeting with LIR, it seems like we come up with something new, and then we have a meeting with this mentor, and then they kind of like shape us by asking a question that normally we didn't see it, and this helped us think more well-rounded. And we're not just thinking about an exhibition, but we're thinking about the audience as well and how people perceive and presume. And especially when we're talking about the website, we are fairly clear image that we want our website to be easy to accessible, language that we use on the website, and that's also the reason why we make it accessible in 3 languages as well. I think this is kind of like something that will help shape my practice in the future. Yeah.
Yes, thank you. I think on that note, if there aren't any other, well, we've got no questions from the audience. I don't know if that's because we've answered all of them already, or they're all asleep, or they're all just listening to us on mute in the background, which might be.
There
But,
was an Alice Luong put, but no.
No, I can't see anything though from Elise, unfortunately.
Yeah, Alice Luong, if you're still there, if you have any questions, so you can submit in any chat box.
But I think just to wrap up, do chime in, those of you left in the room, for the next 2 days. There's very different focuses for the next 2 days. Scroll down to the program. So extraction resilience amidst an environment of entropy is tomorrow. And then the final day is extraction, the impact of humans on our non-human world. So do chime in for those. If you haven't managed to see the PDF brochure, you can download that from our website. But just personally, this is going to be the last public time that I will see all of you guys on a Zoom screen. I will miss you all, but do take care, and I will, of course, keep following you all. And I look forward to, cross fingers, getting the project to Vietnam. So maybe if there's no more questions, we'll call it a day. Thanks to Silasa for hosting.
You're very welcome, Zoe. Thank you so much
everyone.
for coming.
Thank you.
Okay.
Mas Heru, no other words for the audience?
Feel free to join tomorrow and the day after tomorrow. Thank
Okay,
you, everyone.
Okay, I will explain for the link tree. You can access the registrations for tomorrow's links and access. And any other questions, you can also see the link tree / pollination tree. So it's already by the end of the time. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a good time. Have a good rest. See you tomorrow. Bye. I will end this now.
Bye.
Bye.
Sadly, bye-bye.